our kids with ADHD. So long as they're authentically interested in the thing, they can hyper focus on it. They've got no problems focusing and concentrating. So, and that's another kind of confusion around this condition, is that ADHD stands for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. But really, it's really misleading, because the thing is, us ADHDers, we have an abundance of attention. We have a surplus of attention. We just have trouble directing it. It's kind of like, when we hyper focus, all that, amount of attention is just going into one place, and it can be very difficult, which I'm sure you guys know with your kids. It's very difficult to move your child from something that they're just starting to hyper focus on and make a transition to something else. So we're not talking about attention deficit. Our children can concentrate. Our children can hyper focus, so apply more focus than a neurotypical in the things they're authentically interested in. So that's a really important thing to remember when you look through the ADHD lens. Okay, so sharing, have I done that? Let's see, I got confused. Here we go. Can everyone see the slides? Let's have a look from the beginning. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see. Let me know if you can't. But yeah, we'll just really kind of go through this fairly quickly, because Valenza did such a great introduction. But yeah, so I'm founder of the ADHD Advocate, and we specialize in providing ADHD coaching and training and advocacy for parents, particularly, when the kids are struggling at school, schools aren't supporting the kids, and sometimes we have to kind of turn to the education, health and care plans. And that's a whole nother topic, which maybe another day I can come back and talk about EHCPs and ADHD, because parents are kind of often told, no, your child won't get an EHCP, they've just got ADHD, or it's not severe enough. And just be careful with that one, because a lot of the time the schools, the Senkos, they don't actually know the law around EHCPs. The threshold, just very quickly, the threshold for getting a request for an assessment is actually really quite a low one to reach, because it's just whether your child may have a special educational needs. So it's like a may have, not they have. So that's something that I just, if you take away anything from this, just remember that point. So what we do at the ADHD Advocate, we're all about educating and inspiring not just the young people, but their parents to understand and embrace ADHD, because as parents, we play an instrumental role in supporting our children with ADHD in a way not to scare anyone, and make or break type of thing, if that makes sense. Like, stakes are high. Now, that's not to put the pressure on you. And this is something that really gets me with schools and the way they treat parents with ADHD as if it's a matter of bad parenting. They take one look at us, we're often late, right? Because ADHD is genetic. So if your child has ADHD, there's a very high chance that you might have it, your husband might have it, or you both might have it, because ADHDs are attracted to each other, right? So this is the problem. So parents kind of, it's hard for us as parents with ADHD to kind of, with our executive function, skill challenges, weak working memories, to even remember, hang on, the child was having this support, or the child has this need. And so when you're asked to kind of communicate that, it can be very difficult for us sometimes to kind of make the case. So we're quite easily dismissed, and that is not okay, and we don't want that. So the more kind of support you get, for instance, if you do suspect you have ADHD, I highly recommend that you get that checked out, because it is transformational in terms of parenting. When your ADHD is treated, then you're able to better hold the space for your child with ADHD, because yeah, God knows, right? We often need to, like, I don't know, have a huge amount of space to not just react to the meltdowns, to the climbing up the walls and hitting the siblings, and it's very hard to manage emotions in that kind of state. Yeah, so as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about this stuff. I live and breathe it. Personally, obviously, I have experience, and also professionally with my clients as well. But yeah, we really need to kind of understand this condition and really advocate for our kids. So I'm going to do whatever I can today to kind of equip you with what you need, and also signpost, obviously, because we've only got 15 minutes now, but signpost you guys in the right direction. Okay, but basically the aim is that we want to understand the ADHD. We want to be able to look at our children through that ADHD lens, okay, and that's in terms of interpreting behaviors. All behavior is a form of communication, and very much the case with ADHD, which you'll understand once we kind of go through some of the ADHD traits. We want to be taking a strengths-based approach to ADHD. It doesn't do our kids any favors to focus on the negative. You probably have seen that yourself with your kids when they've like got into trouble, or they've done something that's kind of upset you. If you focus on the negative aspect or you yell back at them, they will match you, right? And then it just goes like absolutely out of control. And I tried and tested this theory with my own kids in the early days, and I noticed really quickly, no, me kind of rising to the occasion did not help. And actually the best thing to kind of manage the conflict was to hold the space, to be calm, and to like just kind of be like the detached observer. So not getting drawn in and not feeling triggered yourself and feeling maybe rejection sensitive if you've got ADHD yourself, because that's another huge element of ADHD. But to be able to kind of have that perspective, create the space, and kind of be your child's rock, which is not easy. Okay, I don't want anyone beating themselves up today about being a bad parent, not being able to hold the space for your child, for yelling at your child. Kids with ADHD can be very challenging. Again, personal experience, lived experience every day. Like it's really difficult. I mean, I didn't get diagnosed until I realized, for instance, because it's so overwhelming, the noise, because we're noise sensitive, a lot of us ADHDers as well, and they just kind of scramble your brain. You can't think if you've got multiple kids with ADHD. And for me personally, I wasn't coping very well, and a lot of us do turn to drinking, for instance, just to kind of calm ourselves down, and that is obviously not a solution. And but I'm very lucky that I got to a point that I thought, no, there's something going on here, and I got assessed myself, and that was the turning point for my life, and particularly in relation to parenting and for the entire family, was basically pretty much all of us getting diagnosed and treated for ADHD, because for a while there, the environment, the family environment was toxic. It was toxic. Don't want to go back to those days. I hope you're not going through those days at the moment, but please, I want you to know that if you are, there is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel once you really get to understand what you're dealing with. Okay, so we already know my credentials. Yeah, I've walked in your shoes. This is two of my kids. They're a little bit older now, Olivia and Isabel. Eva, who's the eldest, she is not in this photo, which is not good because she's the ADHD advocate singer, beautiful singer. She writes songs about ADHD. And I can tell you, if I was to show you Eva now and show you Eva before she was diagnosed and medicated, you would not believe it. You would not believe how different she is today, how confident she is today, how quite assertive, probably too assertive. She basically tells us all what to do and to sit up straight and stop eating bad food, which is really annoying. But so there are some downsides, I guess, to the ADHD medication. But she's also got autism. So she's got ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and sensory processing disorder, because ADHD likes company, doesn't tend to sit alone. So if your child's got ADHD, chances are there's probably what they call another comorbidity. So autism or dyslexia, sensory processing disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder. And you do need to watch these other ones, particularly when it comes to our girls with ADHD, because eating disorders, that becomes a problem with ADHD girls a lot of the time, particularly if there is ASD and OCD in the mix. So as parents, right, yeah, we need to kind of have that visibility over what's going on and have the space and capacity to be able to manage that. So yeah, the more you understand about your child's conditions, you know, naming it to tame it, the more we can address them. A lot of parents are quite anti-labels, and you probably hear, oh, ADHD, oh, I don't want to label my child. But guys, the problem with that is without the label, you can't access the treatment. You can't access like the legal entitlements under the Center Legal Framework, for instance. The label does lead, well, one, to understanding, and that's the main thing. Two, to a lot of kind of support under the Center Legal Framework. So the label is important, and the medication as well. You can't obviously get ADHD medication without having ADHD, and the medication, and I completely respect and understand any parent's approaches to the medication, but from what I've seen and experienced myself, it is absolutely transformational for, not for every ADHDer, unfortunately, but for the large majority. And I think statistically and under, you know, scientific research, the ADHD medication is actually the most effective treatment for ADHD. Not, you know, but, you know, you don't just want to medicate. Obviously, the pills don't give skills. So you want to make sure you've got the other supports as well, like the coaching, therapy, if it's required, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, if that's going to help as well. These other things are really important too. Okay, so what do these exceptional individuals have in common? So now I'm going to try and get you to look through the ADHD lens, to start seeing it, to seeing the strengths, and so that you're able to kind of keep those in your mind next time you want to strangle your child. And remember that there are some great aspects to your child. And also, if your child's feeling really hopeless, which a lot of them tend to do, a lot of them hate each other. I mean, that was one of the reasons I got Eva tested. She was getting to her homework and smacking her head and calling herself stupid. It was, these poor kids are suffering, really, and it broke my heart to see her suffer like that. And again, you wouldn't recognize the girl today. She's actually a very strong athlete as well as a singer. And all these people, right, they probably went through a similar thing when they were kids, didn't do very well at school, but then had the thing that they loved, that something physical, because us ADHDers, a lot of energy for a lot of us. And again, with that laser, focusing that laser into something good, like Michael Phelps, you know, for instance, the Olympic swimmer. There's so many strengths to ADHD, right? And I bet you guys could tell me in terms of your children that you recognize a lot of these kind of traits. They're creative, they're curious, they're innovative, they can hyperfocus. A lot of them are really gifted. And one thing that's really interesting, Heston Blumenthal, for instance, he's got ADHD. And ADHD comes with sensory sensitivities. For instance, a lot of your kids are probably quite picky with their food, sensitive to noise. Now, I think Heston Blumenthal, obviously, he's got ADHD and he has a food sensitivity. Without it, would he be Heston Blumenthal, this kind of world-class chef? No, he wouldn't. So the key is to really working out what your kids' strengths are, right? And really kind of helping them leverage those strengths and help them kind of on a path to be able to succeed in life, because ADHD is situationally variable. Okay. What is ADHD? A disorder or a superpower? Can it be both? Yes, very much, because it is situationally variable. So for instance, your child at school, in the classroom, might not be able to focus because the way the education is delivered. I've got a bit of a gripe around that too. And also the content is probably not relevant to the child. So the child, for children to engage, they need to basically, it needs to be relevant. So it also needs to kind of be accessible to them. So if they can't see whatever they're learning as something that they can use that's applicable, if they can't see, touch, feel it, work out where it goes, you know, then the reticular activation system, they can't engage. The brain just does that, right? And so what we do a lot through the ADHD Advocate with in our teacher training and also helping parents when they're helping their kids with their schoolwork It's really to try and incorporate a lot of the multisensory approaches to the teaching, and making it real, make it visible, accessible, make it tangible. Yeah, really, really important. And kind of the more processing styles that you use, the more the brain will engage. So, visual, so lots of visuals and kinesthetic, highlighting, use of color, movement, even music. So that's the other thing. A lot of ADHDers, for certain work that they do, it helps to have some kind of, music in the background. Probably you don't want kind of lyrics when maybe the child's or young person's writing a dissertation, but us parents need to learn to trust the child. That's another thing. ADHDers, they respond a lot better when they feel they're respected, when they feel that things are fair, that they've been listened to. ADHDers are very clever. A lot of your kids are on it, are very, very clever, and they can sniff out. They can sniff out inauthenticity. They will respect you if you are honest with them, transparent, but also compassionate and understanding, gentle, but firm. The firmness is required, otherwise they will try and wriggle their way out of things, as we know, and have one over you. They need to know that you're standing firm, but that you're fair, right? They need to respect you. The more you build that relationship with them, the much more harmonious life will be for both of you. It is a lifelong condition. It's highly genetic. The way ADHD assessed, basically, there's these criteria in this diagnostic statistical manual that psychiatrists use. And basically, there's 3 types of ADHD that's diagnosed. You've got predominantly inattentive, predominantly hyperactive, or combined type. And then in order to kind of get this diagnosis, these traits that are listed, the criteria in the DSM-5, then it must be present in at least 2 settings. Now, the problem, and I'm sure probably some of you have come up against this, is that because ADHD must be present in at least 2 settings, usually at home, so obvious, like you're drowning in it, right? And then at school, you might find that your child is like a different child. And actually, teachers don't see it. They don't see what you're talking about. They're not having any issues. And what happens then, right? You're like drowning and struggling. The child is having a meltdown as soon as they come home and no one can see. And you know that they're miserable. Maybe they're talking about like literally they should be dead. And it can be pretty bad. But they've been masking all day at school for fear of getting into trouble, maybe. Some of them don't have that problem and it's actually really obvious they've got ADHD, but quite a few kids, particularly the girls with ADHD, will be masking. And girls are very good at masking. So it's not picked up by the teachers. And unfortunately, so these girls, they're not really doing us or themselves any favors, because then we can't get them the support that they need, because we can't prove that the ADHD is present in at least 2 settings. This is why it's important for these cases particularly to get a psychiatrist to assess that understands ADHD really well. And a psychiatrist that understands ADHD in girls and how really appreciates that they will often mask at school. And that way the psychiatrist can, observe the child, like when you're in his or her clinic. And if he or she can sign off that they can see the traits, well, that's your other setting. So you've got the 2 settings. And that is how I got my youngest daughter, Isabel, diagnosed. My eldest wasn't a problem. She was literally upside down, like, the class clown. So, and she's very hyperactive, climbing everything. So that was easy. But not all your children will have the same type of ADHD. So that's another thing that really I'd like you guys to take away. And any recommendations for psychiatrists, happy to provide those. It is an invisible disability. So, again, it is difficult because not only do the children, some of them mask the traits themselves are quite invisible. And I know with the DSM-5, they talk about, traits of hyperactivity. Again, that's quite visible. Impulsivity, that's quite visible too. Inattention, not so much. You do hear of the kind of daydreaming ADHD, but often in school, teachers that don't understand ADHD will just kind of see it like the child's stupid, not very bright, And actually, what you'll find, these kind of kids, because there's so much in their heads and they're thinking about so many things, extremely bright. It's just that, well, the teachers just aren't keeping them interested. The content's just not challenging enough or interesting enough. So yeah, it's very, very interesting condition, and also how it plays out in different situations. You can really see the difference in your child when they kind of engage. You can even see it in their eyes, I'm sure, and when they're just kind of not there. All right, it is hard for ADHDs to be present. So ADHD, there's a more accurate description provided by Dr. William Dodson, as opposed to the DSM-5 official criteria. Now, unfortunately, psychiatrists, they don't have this list, but the good ones, the ones that really get it and understand ADHD, they do kind of use this one as well as the DSM-5 criteria. So again, I can provide some recommendations, but ADHD is situationally variable. Sometimes it's problem in some situations, other times not a problem at all. It's a strength. Now, a thing to note about ADHD, these kids, or yourselves, if you've got ADHD, we've got an interest-based nervous system as opposed to an importance-based. You often probably find yourself saying to your kids, how did you not see that that was going to happen? Or, this is really important, right? Like, why are you doing this other thing? The thing is, we don't have an importance-based nervous system. It's interest that drives us. Okay, it's whatever we find authentically interesting. And it's not like we have a choice in the matter. Okay, there is choice, but neurobiologically, physiologically, not compared to the neurotypicals at all, right? It's really, really difficult. This is a neurobiological thing. So it's more a matter of can't versus won't when it comes to our children with ADHD. And that's a very good thing to remember as well and hold in your head. Can't versus won't, because so many of our kids, these kids, the most beautiful children with the biggest hearts, like all they want to do is please us as parents. And then when they can't, and they try so hard, but because again, this is a brain wiring thing, they don't really have much of a chance without, the treatment, without ADHD medication, without the skills. And so it's really important that we do see these children and that they see themselves through this ADHD lens, because otherwise the narrative becomes very, very damaging, and that does not set the child up for success. Emotional management and rejection sensitive dysphoria. Now, these are two things that aren't very well known about ADHD. They're not in the DSM-5, like the emotional dysregulation aspect isn't, which is ridiculous, frankly, but hopefully that will change maybe in the DSM number 6, I think, because it's a massive, massive hallmark kind of trait of ADHD is the emotional dysregulation. So Dr. Ed Halliwell, he's fantastic psychiatrist in the UK, in the US, that he's got some books called, I think it's Driven from Distraction, which is really good. He wrote a book called ADHD, and the latest one, ADHD 2.0, which I've got behind me, is fantastic. Definitely recommend it. But he talks about the ADHD brain as a Ferrari brain, bicycle brakes. And you guys probably thinking about your kids understand what he's talking about. Our brains race. We're fast, we'll answer someone before they've finished the question. We're very impatient. We don't like to wait. So we're fast, but we're not very, we're not very careful. Our brakes are like bicycle brakes. They're not very strong. And so it's about strengthening those brakes. The fuel for our brains, like we talked about, is authentic interest. What I'd like you guys to remember, ICNUP. So make it, either interesting somehow for the child, challenges, making it novel, new, urgency. That's why we do everything last minute. Our brain, that's when we kind of turn on, and passion. So those kind of things. Emotional management, again, I'm sorry, I'm mindful that I am over time. Time management is difficult for ADHDers. And, but these are the type of things that, that a lot of your children, I'm sure, will struggle with. We are intense. We're intense. We're all in or we're all out. It's black or it's white. Very difficult to reach that level of moderation because a brain that's not very stimulating. and we need a lot of stimulation. So, you know, our highs are higher, lows are lower. Our moods, we can get, you know, triggered very quickly and go from kind of 0 to 100. And as parents, you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, what happened? It's like sometimes like walking around, you know, a minefield. You know that at any moment, one of your kids is just going to go off. But then it's like those storms, it rolls in, you know, all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden it's gone again. So, you know, it's really difficult, isn't it, to kind of prepare yourself. So we're often as parents in a state of fight or flight ourselves because we've just got to stay vigilant. We're intense. Unfortunately, a lot of us, our children in particular, and particularly as they go undiagnosed for longer and untreated, the negative self-talk, that narrative becomes more negative. The self-esteem is often really low, and it is exacerbated by very high standards because the thing is, a lot of these kids are brilliant. They're the innovators. The ADHDers are the pioneers. They're the ones that see, you know, things that others don't. They're the canaries in the mine. And so a lot of ADHDs and children in particular, they don't understand why they can't do the easy things, or, you know, they're quite brutal on themselves because they do expect a very high standard from themselves, and usually for good reason, because they can reach these very high standards when, say, you know, the thing is interesting to them, it's relevant, or it's delivered in a multi-sensory way. But other people just don't get it. Their teachers don't get it. Often their parents don't get it. And when they don't feel understood, like I'm sure as a parent, as an adult, when you don't feel like you're being understood, for instance, come on, wives, when you feel like your husband doesn't understand you, you get angry. Okay, and that's what happens with our kids. They're angry and scared. I mean, they don't know what's going on. So as parents of children with ADHD, we've kind of got a, you know, duty to really get our heads around this and know what ADHD is and how it's affecting our kids. So rejection sensitive dysphoria, this is another one that you'll see, a very fundamental feature of ADHD. Dysphoria is like crippling pain. So when ADHDs, particularly children, when they feel that someone's rejected them, which is a problem, right? We're talking school playgrounds and we're talking kids. So this is happening a lot to our kids, okay? A lot, because they can't, you know, place themselves in an environment that they want to put themselves in. As adults, you know, we can choose our jobs, maybe, but, you know, we've got more control over our situation. These kids don't. So school can be a nightmare for these kids, particularly if the children around them, you know, aren't particularly nice. And so they're always kind of in this state of rejection sensitive dysphoria. And it either drives an ADHDer to like just, you know, go in on themselves, can lead to kind of really intense, long ruminations, or an ADHD can become a very angry, you know, ADHD. So you might find some of the kids with ADHD quite aggressive and maybe even a bit bullying to other children because it's in their heads, they're like, well, I don't like you anyway, right? Or I'm going to reject you before you can reject me. And because the pain of the RSD is just so crippling, so they do anything to avoid it. So a lot of us and a lot of these kids you'll see as people pleasers, which sets them up not in a great way because they've got no boundaries. Chameleons, so just kind of going with the flow, and then they don't really know who they are. Or avoiders. I don't want to try that thing. I'm not going to do that. If there's a chance that they could fail, then no, not doing it. So again, never being able to kind of reach their potential because they're never trying. So you can see how ADHD has a huge impact on our kids' lives. They're not going to grow out of it, okay? It's not like a mental illness. We're talking wiring. This is the brain. It's neurobiological. And again, there's lots of co-occurring traits. Anxiety. A lot of kids and even adults are misdiagnosed with anxiety when actually it's untreated ADHD. And often with the medication, it can help reduce the anxiety massively. It is not a product of poor parenting. Good parenting definitely helps manage ADHD, but your child does not have ADHD because you are a bad parent. Just pausing on that one because I really want that to really go in. So how can you help your child tell a new story? Again, like I've said, get ADHD educated, look through that ADHD lens. Make sure when you're assessing your child that you're getting them assessed by a psychiatrist that really understands ADHD, has experience, understands the things like the emotional dysregulation and rejection sensitive dysphoria. Be open to ADHD medication. It is transformational for some people. And my child, I'll never forget, I think she was 9. I had to medicate her at 5 because she was a risk basically to herself and others. But I remember she said to me when she was about 9, "Mummy, thank you. Thank you for medicating me." She goes, "I wouldn't have been able to learn." And that, I still remember where we were exactly. I remember that day and giving me goosebumps right now. But, you know, no parent wants to medicate. You know, none of us want to medicate our children. Certainly I didn't. And, but you know what? I thank God that there was that option. So I just wanted to really just share that with you. Create plenty of opportunities for success, right? We want to change that narrative. You know, help the child know what their strengths are. Provide opportunities for them to express those strengths. Find out what their dominant processing styles are. A lot of them are verbal processors, as you can probably tell. We do like to talk. It's like filing for our head. A lot of us kind of think through out loud. It can be confusing for those around us, but and when it's your kid, it can drive you crazy. But it's what we need. That's why coaching actually is really good for creating that space to verbally process. And yeah, definitely play to their interests. Be your child's champion, okay? These kids are good kids. They want to do the right thing, okay? So remember that and see them. So when they're kind of having their meltdowns, you hold that vision for them because they can't see it at the time. You probably are having massive trouble seeing it too. But remember the child as they are when they're not triggered. You know, remember really see them, not the ADHD that's kind of going off, but them, and remind them. It's like an anchor. It brings them back. It really helps. I can tell you, I do it with my children. So as a parent, it's so important that you put your oxygen mask on first. If you suspect you have ADHD, get assessed and seek treatment. I did. I was living on hell on earth before, and it made a massive difference, mostly to holding the space, to not getting triggered myself when they were kicking off, and just being calmer. So not a wreck in the morning and evening. Create space to hold the space. The hardest thing for ADHD is to do, but the most important thing, okay? Because we need as parents to be able to hold the space, not trigger. Be there for our kids, access our cognitive function there. Prioritize self-care, mindfulness, and gratitude. Again, promoting our own narrative as a more positive one. Okay, holding the space. Get support. Don't do it alone. Okay, so from family, friends, household help. A lot of ADHDers, we struggle ourselves like with household chores because it's not authentically interesting to us. Others of us are like, because our environment's really important, it becomes authentically interesting. So we're clean freaks. It's really interesting how it plays out. But anything that you're struggling with, don't beat yourself up for. Please stop. No more beating yourself up. It's just not worth it. Okay, you've got other strengths. They probably don't lie in that place. And if you can get some help, definitely get some help. Make time for fun, yeah, and try and stay positive. We do get what we look for. So this is from Attitude. If you guys haven't signed up to Attitude, I definitely recommend it. It's got some great resources. So this is 25 things to love about ADHD. And in terms of next steps, hopefully this was helpful. But through the ADHD Advocate, we can support you and your family through training. We've got a parent training starting. Our next one's 1st of November. ADHD coaching, which we do one-to-one with parents and kids and their siblings. Whole nother story, whole nother webinar probably. We've got a TAA, the ADHD Advocate Parent Circle that you'll belong to. Every month we answer your questions, and obviously with the other parents supporting each other. But you've got a great thing here with SEN Talk, an ADHD Unlocked membership, which is our kind of really affordable, accessible support. And, you know, if I had time, I could show you a little bit of that, but I want to answer your questions, and advocacy services, including help with EHCPs. But definitely there are some charities like IPSI and then your local SENDIAS that should be able to help you for free. So we only really come into it with on the EHCP side when, for instance, a parent needs to appeal. So look through the ADHD lens. That's the message. And for some tips and strategies on parenting with ADHD, we're holding a webinar on Friday the 24th of September at 10:30. So do come along to that. It's free. And then we'll also be talking about our family program in more detail. So yes, that wasn't quite 20 minutes. Sorry about that, but I really needed to give you the messages. So hopefully that was helpful. Okay, that's kind of